I got my top 10 must-add hitters for this week in fantasy baseball, and that list is coming up next on Beat the Odds. Don't go anywhere. Hello, sports fans, and welcome back to another episode of Beat the Odds. I'm going to give you my top 10 must-add hitters for Week 8 in fantasy baseball. If you like this content, then please smash that like button. A special thanks goes to all of our subscribers who have been watching these videos, as you now account for 15% of all viewers. To the other 85% of viewers that haven't yet subscribed, I encourage you to do so, as it helps me create these videos for you. Also, leave a comment on a player that you think deserves to be on this list. Do you have a burning fantasy baseball question? Ask me on Q. Go to askmeonq.com/beattheodds, submit your question, and for a small fee, I will personalize a response and send it to your email. It's super easy to do, and it's a great way to get fantasy baseball advice while also supporting this channel. So let's kick off the list here at number 10. We have Paul DeJong, 4% owned over the last 2 weeks. He's got 10 runs scored, 3 homers, 6 runs batted in, a stolen base, and a .286 average. So what are we going to do with DeJong? He has been a fringe rosterable player in the past, and he's making a case to be one once again. He's got a nice productive streak going, hitting a run in and scoring a run in the last 4 games. He's getting lots of playing time as well, which is not something that he was getting in the past. I say pick him up if you must, but just don't go wild with what you're going to expect from him going forward. Let's go to number 9. We have Ceddanne Rafaela, 29% owned, 6 runs scored over the last 2 weeks, 2 homers, 10 runs batted in, a stolen base, and a .350 average. Rafaela's 8-game hitting streak just came to an end in Saturday afternoon's game against Washington. If you include his 7-run outburst almost 2 weeks ago, it makes for a really impressive 12-game stretch. It is unlikely that he's going to keep his productive pace going, but he should supply you with a good amount of stolen bases going forward. If that's something that you happen to need, then I say give him a look. Let's go to number 8. We have John Singleton, 8% owned, 8 runs scored over the last 2 weeks, 4 homers, 10 runs batted in, .212 average. Now, if the Astros were firing on all cylinders, then Singleton would be owned in far more than 8% of leagues right now. He is widely available, but that will change if he can continue to hit in the 5 spot of the order. Singleton has been the beneficiary of Jose Abreu's demotion, and if you add another lefty bat to that lineup, it should balance it out quite nicely, and that could also do wonders for your lineup as well. Moving on to number 7, we have Shea Langoliers, 25% owned, 7 runs scored over the last 2 weeks with 3 homers, 12 runs batted in, and a .297 average. Another player who has recently had a mammoth game, Langoliers set an A's record with 8 runs batted in across a doubleheader this past week. He recorded a triple in that game, which isn't impossible to do at Oakland Coliseum, but it does speak to his 28 feet per second sprint speed, which is rare for a catcher. Now, we're not going to see that translate into many stolen bases, as he's only had 3 total in 708 appearances so far in his career. Moving on to number 6, we have Leody Taveras, 11% owned. Over the last 2 weeks, he's got 13 runs scored, 2 homers, 7 runs batted in, a stolen base, and a .310 average. Taveras presents an interesting conundrum in Texas. With the addition of incumbents Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford, I assume that Taveras would take up a secondary role on the team. Now, Langford, however, has been out with an injury, and that presents another opportunity for Taveras to produce. The 25-year-old switch hitter already has a 14-homer and 14 stolen base season, and with playing time, he can certainly replicate that this year. Let's go to number 5. We have Joe Adell, 36% owned. Over the last 2 weeks, he's got 8 runs scored, 4 homers, 9 runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, and a .239 average. Trout is out again, so the Angels are stuck trying to pick up the pieces again. This might be a good thing for Joe Adell, though, as it likely means he's going to have a longer leash this time around. Adell can mash, currently ranked in the top 5% for expected slugging and expected batting average. If he can keep on the ball, we might be looking in store for a useful season from him after all. Moving on to number 4, we have Abraham Toro, 24% owned. Over the last 2 weeks, he's got 10 runs scored, a homer, 6 runs batted in, and a .487 average. Toro is locked in at the plate right now. He's not going to be counted on to carry your team in power, but the way that he's hitting, he could be a major force in your team's batting average. He's selling out a little bit for contact, so it might be difficult for him to sustain this, but as long as he's hitting in that sweet spot, he should be continued to be featured in a productive spot in the Oakland order. Let's go to number 3. We have Jacob Young, 51% owned. Over the last 2 weeks, he's got 12 runs scored, 5 runs batted in, 7 stolen bases, and a .278 average. Now, we've already covered Young last week, but let's do a quick recap. No power, all speed. That's pretty much all you need to know. He keeps his strikeouts in check. He doesn't walk enough to warrant a leadoff spot, but it's a national, so really they don't mind. I feel he may struggle to get on base as the season goes on, but when he does get on, he's going to be a major supplier of runs and stolen bases. Let's go to number 2. We have Luis Garcia. 48% owned over the last 2 weeks. He's got 5 runs scored, 2 homers, 10 runs batted in, 2 stolen bases, and a .344 average. Sticking with the Nationals, we turn to the hot stretch by Luis Garcia. He's starting to supply some real value at the plate. Looking at his indicators, there's no reason to believe that he can't continue this going forward. The stolen bases are a plus. They're not really a part of his game, but the way that he's hitting the ball right now, he could lock himself into a 20 homer, 20 stolen base season by the time September comes around. And finally, at number 1, we have Max Kepler, 52% owned, 9 runs scored over the last 2 weeks with 3 homers, 10 runs batted in, a stolen base, and a .436 average. One of the more popular Twins hitters on the team, his past few years have been quite uninspiring. But now that he's healthy and lining up against lefties, he's become a much more valuable player to own. He's not going to steal bases, but he's certainly capable of putting 30 homers over the fence the way that he's hitting it right now, and that's going to come with some really nice production as well. If he happens to be out there, you know what to do. And that's going to do it here for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like on the video and of course subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'm going to sign off for now, but I will catch you guys on the next episode.